Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us today. Tell me a little bit about this project and why you chose Sri Lanka for it. Let's start with you, Paul.
I was actually been in Sri Lanka now for 6 years. I have another business in Sri Lanka, in Koggala, in the free zone, and that's down south. I haven't got a lot of history in the tourism industry, but I've done developments in Australia, and I'm in retail in Australia. And when I was living down there, I found that there was a complete lack of pretty much everything. There wasn't any good restaurants. Like, this is 5-6 years ago when I first got here. I think I got here just about half a month or something after the war finished, Ajit, wasn't it? Yeah. So I remember getting off the plane and going through all the checkpoints with machine guns and the whole works. But we set up the business, and I just noticed that there was a lack of certain things. There was a lack of really good quality international restaurants. I love rice and curry, it's great. I like a cold beer. But sometimes you can't get a cold beer because the guy takes 10 minutes or 15 minutes to get you a cold beer. And after a while, you just kind of get sick of rice and curry, so you're looking something different. So we actually looked at this really nice beach in Balapitiya. I'm an Australian. I love beaches. I'm probably very good at identifying great beaches. And we thought this was a great beach, and we originally thought, you know what, let's put some really nice international bars and restaurants on this site, so we just bought it. It wasn't my main area of business, but then we thought, look, what else is lacking? The other thing that was lacking down south, and it's still lacking, is quality apartments. There's nothing. If you're a family, you're coming here from Australia or from England or Germany, and you want to stay here with your family, and you've got 3 kids, you'll need two hotel rooms, because there is no apartments.
So you partnered with Dusit International.
We did.
Why
yes.
that company?
Well, originally we spoke to quite a few that we spoke to, a couple were here, but it came down to me, I wanted a Thai brand. I find Thai hospitality about the best in the world. Yeah. And I see a lot of similarities. You've heard that today. There's a lot of people saying similarities between Thailand and Sri Lanka. I've been to Thailand 40, 50 times. I love it. It's a great place, and I could see a lot of similarities. For me, I had this tropical kind of feel. I wanted that tropical kind of hospitality. 2 brands, Anantara and Dusit, were my kind of picks, and we ended up running with Dusit.
Tell me a little bit about the negotiations that went down between you guys.
Tough.
Really?
One's a lawyer and one's an entrepreneur, so that was quite an experience, but actually very quick. One of the quickest we've signed as well.
What were the tough parts? What were the challenging parts?
Just that, like any good deal, you want to get the best out of it. So I think, as Stuart alluded to earlier, it's about creating that trust and relationship first and foremost. But whilst doing that, trying to get the best deal. So that tension was very evident. But we all believed in the project when we saw the land, and we just, it's the vision that Paul's just described and what's down there. I think, we all wanted it to happen. It's just how to structure it. So
and as an operator,
that fast track quite fast.
Your name is on it.
Yes.
So your reputation's at stake.
Absolutely.
What kind of pressure was that?
At the end of the day, like in the hotel business, location. So, once you get to grips with that and you understand the market dynamics and all the potential we've been talking about, the risk is really mitigated a lot. So it'll come down to execution, which is still to play out. But we have great trust in that this project will be a success because of the passion that's behind this, because of all the elements coming together, which it's almost a no-brainer. It will succeed. I mean, Paul's been telling me that for the last 2 days. If we don't fill it, if we don't operate it well, then something's very wrong, because, as you said, down there's not much competition, which is a plus. And with the new highway down to Gaul, it's really very good access. And once the highway links up to the airport, you're door to door almost an hour and a half. So from
hour and a quarter, yeah.
Hour and a quarter even. So, that is just going to open up the whole infrastructure down there and create a destination, really.
The units aren't cheap. You're looking at anywhere from just over $200,000 US for a 1-bedroom to upwards of $600,000.
Are you interested?
Yeah. Mates rates?
Absolutely.
Who's your target consumer? Who's your target resident?
A lot of overseas people, a lot of expats, and we are selling extremely well. We sold a tower already. And People like me, I left Sri Lanka in 1975 when there was land reform. Our family had big plantations. So a lot of people left the country, and people like myself, we come back to Sri Lanka at least once a year and like going to the beach area. There's no apartments. And in Australia, you go to the Gold Coast, you get hundreds of apartments. So we are used to that sort of lifestyle. Now when you come to Sri Lanka, you've got to have 2 little rooms. Half the family's got to be in one room, other part's got to be in the other room, and you've got a corridor in the middle. We are not used to that lifestyle. So because of that, we have lots of Sri Lankan expats like myself and also foreigners who are looking at that lifestyle.
It has been described as an unfamiliar project, project structure.
I suppose in Sri Lanka it is, but in Australia it's a common structure. In Thailand it's a common structure. In Hawaii it's a common structure. So it's just that because we had a war for 30 years, we don't have products like that, but in other parts of the world it's a very common structure. Maybe Rustom can say about where else you all have a similar structure.
We're seeing it definitely as a common trend, this structure, because across the region and across the globe, it's very difficult to build hotels because the capital costs increasing. Land prices, especially in Asia, are ridiculous now. So hotels don't stack up on their own anymore. Well, it's very difficult to find developers who have deep pockets to execute that capital cost.
So this is essentially a holiday home for people.
Yeah, but we don't like to call it that. We just call it selling
It's a lifestyle investment.
lifestyle investment with benefits.
Of course.
So it's about educating the market on what that is, because you're right, it's the first sort of product like that in Sri Lanka.
I think people, as they travel more, they get more of an idea of what kind of a lifestyle they want. And if it means that they can divide their time and have residences in different places, 2 places if possible, divide it half the year, that's very appealing. But from a legal perspective, did you find there were any challenges?
We have the same British legal system in Sri Lanka as in Britain. So the legal system's very good here and very transparent, and we found it very easy to work here.
How has the project been received in terms of sales?
Been going great guns. Fantastic sales. We are really happy with it.
What numbers are we looking at?
We've sold 1 tower already, so we are doing pretty well.
Yeah?
Yeah,
We've got 3 big ones still to go, but we'll get there. Yeah.
And how are you marketing it?
We've only really started domestically. It's funny because you said no-brainer. I had the head of Savills International here 3 days ago, and I took him, I got him in the car, drove him from Bentota all the way down to Marissa. I showed him what was there. I showed him, he's done the research, he knew the numbers, the increase in tourism and all that, but he didn't really know the beauty of it, and he didn't really realise that it just really is a lack of product down there. So the last thing he said to me, Paul, he said, mate, you've got a no-brainer. And I like that word, because at the end of the day, for us, it means we're, I think, at the right place at the right time.
So we're looking at 7 kilometres of freehold beach that you own?
I wish.
Is it? No?
It's just over 500 metres.
Oh, really? Okay. Still pretty good.
7 kilometres is a lot better, but...
Well, of course. Of course. That's on the wish list. What other areas are you looking at to develop similar projects?
We are focusing on this at the moment. So,
There's 2 others we're looking at, but they're...
but other things we are looking at, not hotel stock itself, but other services in the area. That's what Sri Lanka lacks, especially down south. We don't have enough golf courses, we don't have enough shopping. So other services which we would like to bring to our destination. So we are looking at those ones, because the bottom line is we got fantastic beaches down south. We got limited stock. Also, there's very little for tourists to do. That's why we want to have the bars and restaurants all in one location. So it'll be a destination location. And we'll also have other activities for the tourists to do. Things that made places like Hawaii successful, or the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
In that, if it's a rainy day, what do you do in Sri Lanka? Other than the beaches, you've got nothing to do. So we want to fill that void in the market down south. And both Paul and I and Dusit, we are very passionate about the south. I'm from the south, as I said before. We've had businesses down the south for generations. So I've seen other countries like Thailand prosper. And so we want to copy the model in places like Thailand, which has 30 million tourists, and we have 1.5. So we've got to ask ourselves, what are we doing wrong?
From a operator perspective, you've got the vision from the entrepreneur, you've got family vision as well from your family as well. Where do you fit in?
Well, I think it's when we said, why did we take this project? We've been looking at Sri Lanka for quite a while. I've been with Dusit for 5 years, and it was definitely a piece of the missing jigsaw puzzle, as it were, because we're in the Maldives, we're in the Middle East, we're also growing across the region as well. And Thailand is obviously the natural base as well. So Sri Lanka was one we've been trying to get into, and I think by creating that network, especially with the Maldives, change in market, everyone's been talking about the add-on of Maldives plus Sri Lanka packaging. So obviously by having this project allows for that more. So from an operation perspective, again, not to use the word no-brainer again, but it fits in very well seamlessly with what we're trying to do.
How long did it take to get this going, to break ground?
About 5 years since we started buying the land, because people who know the southern coast, the best beach land is between Benthura and Galle, or probably Mirissa now, and that's the hardest place to get good land, beachfront land. And another factor is down south you have the railway running near the beach, so you got very little setback. Then you got the Galle Road running. Again, you got little setback because of that. And the third factor is the title down south is rather dubious. So you have about 10% of the land that has good title down south. So when you add all those factors together, you got very little land in that key area, and that's where the Southern Expressway goes. So that's where we started buying the land before the expressway started, but we knew that it was planned to go down to Galle and then Mathura. So we bought our land with that in mind.
How does this fit into Sri Lanka's topography, if you will, in terms of land structure as well? When you look at how Sri Lanka is out by the beaches and the southern areas and the coastal areas, it's inherently, got low-lying buildings, and it's still very inherently Sri Lankan. How does this fit into it?
I suppose times move on. In that, when I first went to Australia in 1970, 75 it was, we had little motels all over the coast. You go to the Gold Coast in the 70s, that's what we had. We had motels. But you go to the Gold Coast now and it's developed. That's progress. So, and at the end of the day, what I want to see is create jobs for the South and create greater revenue. And to create revenue and to create jobs, you need the brands, you need the scale, and you need people like Dusit to come and bring in hospitality schools. One of the reasons we chose Dusit is because they have very large hospitality schools, and they are planning a large hospitality school for the whole region down south. So that was a big factor for us.
What kind of investment are we looking at here?
In terms of retail sales, it's about 200 million US.
And when do you expect?
So it's one of the largest investments down south.
And when do you expect to see a return?
It depends on this man. How he runs the hotel.
No pressure.
It was actually the last talk was quite interesting. I was really listening to that, but
it's too late. We've negotiated the contract.
Exactly. So it's all done. 7 to 10 years.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, that's what we're here.
Yeah.
If I can add on to this whole conversation, because I think one of the key issues here, and it's a chicken and egg situation in Sri Lanka, and it goes to the bigger conversation of how to develop the country to get that, not 30 million, but maybe at least 10 million arrivals, is that a lot of the projects we see are very small scale, and that goes back to the land title issues, the lack of beachfront, so you can't build the big projects you get across Asia. So by doing what they've done, which is parcel 3 pieces of land together and get that scale, and then do the model that we're doing, they're going to build a big project, which is 500 plus keys. So that will give us the scale to operate to a 5-star standard. We'll need the training school that we're looking at setting up in Colombo. They'll factor into the human resource element. So these are the kind of projects that we've been looking for and waiting for, and I think that will really put a big marker on Sri Lanka, but also the south, and create a whole destination down there.
And they are inherently investment properties as well. I guess you could look at it that way, even though people might use them. But they all probably look at it as investment properties.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
Yes.
what they're buying.
Yeah. You mentioned that you are looking at potentially other areas as well. What do you have your eye on?
There's a lot of competition out here, so you can be
We want to have certain leisure activities down south, and so
We
that's
talk about the beach club.
Why not Colombo? Why not a city centre as well?
couple of reasons. The expats want beaches, tourists want beaches. I mean, when
Would you consider catering to a domestic client as well?
even the Colombo crowd wants to go down to Galle. You look at the hotels down Galle, up Ventura to Galle, during the war, they thrived. They self-did all, right? Because people in Colombo went to those locations. So I see the key from Ventura to probably Marisa. That's the key. And people in Colombo are happy to get on the Southern Expressway and go down and enjoy that.
There's a lot more competition in Colombo too.
Yeah.
And whereas we have a free slate, pretty much.
When you approached this particular piece of land, were there others who were interested?
We bought it from one of the biggest companies in Thailand,
Did you?
2 acres, and the rest of it we bought from other people. So there was a lot of demand. And also we started buying the land when the war finished, when it wasn't in huge demand. There was no Southern Expressway. So we got in early, but we did buy some land afterwards. And now there is a lot of demand for it. Yes.
As this one starts to, as this one gets sold, the first tower, as you were saying, and then the other two as well, what are some of the lessons learned when you start to look at some other areas now? What will you either use for the next projects and not use for the next projects?
It depends on the next project, really.
But if you're looking at similar type of residential complexes with food and beverage and entertainment.
Yeah, I suppose you need good access from the airport.
Yeah.
The key's got to be 90 minutes from the international airport. And if there's roads planned or airports planned to areas so that international travelers can come in 90 minutes, then we'll look at it. And at present, that pretty much leaves you the southern belt from Ventura to Marisa, that's it. And also another thing down south, obviously, is you have Galle, which is a UNESCO heritage area. Then you have the Singharaja rainforest, which is also UNESCO World Heritage. And you got the elephant orphanages, you got the wildlife. So down south, we have all of that.
Are you looking at buyers within South Asia and Australia?
Oh, we have buyers, yes. Buying units.
Anywhere else outside of the region?
Where the expats are, that's a big market for us, and also general investors also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Dusit International perspective, where does this project rank with the others that you have under your belt?
Number one, of course, in front of these guys.
Of course, of course.
As I said, we are looking at this model quite a lot now across the region. I think we've signed 10 new projects this year, and half of those have a mixed-use component, be it branded residential. And in every country, in every market, it's a slightly different model based on the regulation and based on the vision. So there's timeshare, we don't like to use that word.
That's a
dirty word. Condotel, branded residential, and then this sort of hybrid or somewhere in between. So, as I said, it's a model that developers are using more to try and get projects financed and built and realized. At the end of the day, from our perspective, you know, it's very clear structure. They want to build a 5-star luxury product. We want to then operate it with our, you know, very proud service and brand association. So as long as it's all structured well, then I don't see any issue with this model, other than, of course, you've got a little bit more complication involved than just one developer versus fractional ownership. But the risk is there with one owner. One owner can go bankrupt. In the last panel, we talked about that. Debt financing, it can, you know, you almost have too much risk by putting too much eggs in one basket. This way, the risk is somewhat spread. It's just a little bit more complex. So I think it's a model that you'll see coming into this part of the world more often. And it's good, I think, good for the industry, because at the end of the day, it will run as a resort and it will have this destination and it will create jobs and it will bring the infrastructure that is so, you know, direly needed.
What kind of reception did you receive from the BOI in Sri
Very
Lanka?
helpful. They were extremely helpful
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, BOI wants and the government wants to create jobs, especially down south in the remote areas. And secondly, they want revenue to be generated. And projects like this does both of those.
When can we see people moving in?
2 years from now.
Fingers crossed.
Yep, end of 2018 is
Yeah.
the target, I think.
That was pretty realistic on that.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting, these residential complexes, because what kind of competition do you think, or are you in a completely separate category?
Our competition is probably coming from other countries like Thailand
I see.
and Dubai.
Yeah.
That's where our competition is. Because at the end of the day, if a family wants to have a beach holiday on the beach or with an apartment, Sri Lanka's got nothing. So you go to Thailand. And so our competition from Thailand and Dubai and other markets where Dusit's very strong in. So that's why if you draw a four-hour radius around Sri Lanka, Dusit's very strong.
Yeah.
They're very strong in Thailand, very strong in the Middle East and the Maldives. That's why we picked them. That's one of the main factors. Because they were the clients, they had nothing in Sri Lanka, and we thought it would be a fantastic fit.
So what does Sri Lanka bring that the others don't?
One, we have fantastic beaches, and as somebody said earlier on, to go to Thailand from Europe, it's longer. From Dubai to Sri Lanka, $250 you're here, $500 you're here on business class. And you go to Burj Khalifa for a drink, and it's $50, you know what I mean? So 5 drinks, you might as well come here.
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned.
It just comes to being another choice. I mean, you've got, from the sales perspective, the residences, and that comes down to personal choice, whether people want to have an investment in Sri Lanka because there's more return vis-a-vis mature markets, or you want a more safe haven because we've got a project in, say, Australia, just outside Brisbane, and that would be a different investment decision. So I think there is a market out there where people are wanting to put their money into something, not just 0% interest bank deposits. So there is this product does stand on itself, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, domestically that's the main driver for this. There's a lot of, it's an investment into Sri Lanka in itself, so it's a way to be
There's lots of expats. In Melbourne, for instance, there's 70,000 Sri Lankans there. And if there's good product here, which with the product they're familiar in Australia, they'll buy here because they still feel this as their home or second home. And they're not interested in Colombo because Colombo is another city. They've got Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane, which are developed cities. But the beaches here are fantastic, world class. So that's the driver.
It sounds all very positive. But what do you think were the major hurdles that you had to overcome in order to get to this point?
Getting the land was the hardest, really. Because if you own from Benthot, as I said before, to Gold, that's the best trip. Land is very hard to get.
Why?
Because 3 things, as I said before, the railway goes near the coast, the Gold Road goes near the road, and also the title down south. Very little, probably less than 10% of the land has good title.
You can buy it. There's plenty of land to buy down there, but you might have to buy it from this bloke, that bloke, another bloke over there, and another bloke over there.
Because the title registration system.
So somebody contests the title and says, you know what, that wasn't his land, that's my land. And it'll end up in court, and 5 years later you could still be in court. So it's an issue. From a developer's point of view, you have to have clean title.
Yeah.
So for us to get a large chunk of land with good title, that was a very big hurdle.
And are you foreseeing that this could be the same issue as you look into next?
Without a doubt. It's a big issue. Definitely down south, it's a big issue.
Because for many years, beachfront land wasn't worth much, and also the land ownership system, when someone dies, the whole family moves in, and they don't bother registering what they call partitioning the land. So as a result...
How did you overcome this?
We just had to look at different blocks and find the ones which had good title, and we were fortunate in that some of the blocks are bought by large companies, large Thai companies, which are land banking. So we obviously gave them a premium.
Rustom's competition, Anantara, actually had 2.5 acres that we acquired, and that was lucky to be clean title. So once we had their 2.5 acres and we had the other 6, just over 6, we brought the two together. There's our architect over there, Atua, how are you, mate? He came up with a brilliant design which linked 2 biggest pieces of land. So how we came across it, we've got one big piece here, which is the north piece, which will run 2 towers, the smaller towers, and then we've got the south piece, which is a little bit bigger, will run 2 larger towers. And we connected the two, and we connected it with bars and restaurants. So you'll have a boardwalk that'll connect the 2 sites, elevated at some stage, but a complete forecourt the way through. It was an issue, getting some of the land, but that last piece is what put it together, and we got that a couple of years ago.
And also we are having a large convention center for 800 people, so to target the big Indian weddings and conventions, etc. That's something Dusit really wanted.
Yeah.
So we'll have the largest beachfront convention center in the whole region.
The issue that has been raised is labor here. Are you
Very
envisioning?
big problem.
Yeah.
And that's why they're having a Dusit school here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we foresaw that. We continue to foresee that as an issue. I mean, not to oversell, but one of the key uniquenesses of Dusit is it's got this huge education arm, which is really investing a lot into educating the industry across the region. So we've got hotel schools coming up in Vietnam, Cambodia, and the Philippines, across what we already have in Thailand. So it's across every country we go to, it's the same issue, whether it's lack of trained rank and file, or even middle management to senior management. There's a huge dearth of talent and getting people trained up.
Is it because there's just lack of interest in the industry?
It's really interesting. And again, it's very country by country. Sri Lanka's got a weird dynamic. In some ways, it's very famous for its hospitality, and that's the people that have left the country and gone to the Middle East and other places, and Maldives, and they've exported that hospitality. But in Sri Lanka itself, from what we've seen in the studies, is culturally it's still not regarded as a true profession. It's kind of looked down upon. Hence, there's been a dearth of proper hotel schools and proper status given to vocational education here. So we're seeing that changing culturally, as ultimately people still need jobs, and I think that with hospitality business becoming, or tourism becoming more of a cornerstone of the economy, then people give it due respect. But that's still an issue, yeah.
Was there ever a point where you just said, I don't want to do this anymore, it's just too complicated, too many roadblocks?
No, we wanted to do this. This is a passion for both of us.
What about you, Paul?
Without a doubt, it was difficult, but we could see the big picture. And so we had, for this development, in my opinion, we've got all the ducks lined up.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good product. The location is sensational. We're at the right place at the right time. It's good. So we pushed and we got there, and we're very happy that we did.
Some final thoughts. What's your vision for the coastal areas of Sri Lanka?
I see a lot of future in the coastal areas. There's certain problems, such as access to certain parts of the coast. So that's a huge issue we have. Road access and airport access, etc. Because at the end of the day, if you look at what succeeded in Thailand or in Australia, you've got to be 90 minutes from an international airport. People don't want to sit in a car and go for 6 hours. So I see that as being a big hurdle, but that will happen. The infrastructure will improve, and then be happy days.
Fingers crossed. From your company's perspective?
On Sri Lanka
Yeah.
or the project? Or?
Yeah. Bringing Thai expertise?
Yeah. I think, again, the potential's there, and it seems like it's a running theme throughout the whole conference, the whole day, right? We all know that the key issues. I'm trying to think of something new, because I think it's all been said in terms of infrastructure, from the airport to the airlift. It's fundamental. A bit concerning to hear the stories about Sri Lankan, and ever since they parted ways with Emirates, it's difficult to get that back and running. Clearly, you've got to get bums on seats here, and I think that's the biggest issue going forward. We're opening a 500-key property. The biggest question everyone says, oh my gosh, how are you going to fill it? And the bottleneck will probably be at the airport. But I think we're all confident that that push will come from all the supply that's coming on. We've seen in Colombo I'm sure everyone will, put the relevant pressure onto the authorities to hopefully get that act together, because the reason why Thailand is so successful is the infrastructure.
Yeah.
That's, for me, very obvious. The airport, massive one. The free airways, airlines coming in. We've seen that with Dubai and Emirates Airlines. So that's an obvious one that's a concern. But I think if we open today, 500 keys, the occupancies are very high already. So I think it's just that people would come to this product, because it's also a question of build it and they'll come, and there hasn't been really good product that's entered the market for 30 plus years. It's incredible. The Movenpick that opens up next month, it's the first 5-star hotel in 30 years.
Yeah.
So that goes to show that there's a whole untapped demand, that people are out there probably waiting to come to Sri Lanka once the quality supply comes. So there's very much a chicken and egg scenario. So I think a lot of demand will be induced, but again, will it be bottlenecked by lack of proper arrival, access, infrastructure?
And for you, more places to have good food and a beer.
That's the most important thing,
Of course,
isn't it?
of
We'll
course.
serve
Great
cold
food.
beer, don't worry.
No, look, I honestly, I'm here and a lot of other people here purely because we think Sri Lanka has a lot of potential. It's got problems. Rustom said it, everybody else has said it.
But every country does in their own way.
100%. Sri Lanka's probably got more than most at this particular time, but you've been through a rough time, and you're on the way out, and you're on the way out. That's why people like me are here, simple as that.
Excellent, that's a good place to end. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.